everyone, it's Cam from Arsenal Theory. I'm coming to you from the man cave today. It's about the quietest place in the house, so good opportunity to try out a new location and get a video to you. I really didn't want to have to do this video. I'm still quite distraught after what happened yesterday, but we need to get into the little bit into the weeds of what happened and ask ourselves some questions really, and cover some stuff, starting off with, like I had in the thumbnail, how Brighton broke Arsenal, and also what are the lessons learned in this kind of situation. So in terms of the first part, how Brighton broke Arsenal, I think a lot of it is actually we broke ourselves. We can be quite a self-destructive team. I don't know if you've ever kind of known people in your life that just seem to make the worst of a situation if something's going a particular way, and they don't seem to be able to turn it round, and it just kind of feels inevitable that they're going to make a bad situation worse. That's kind of like Arsenal. Now, that might sound odd because we're in second place in the league, and it's like, well, how can you get into second place being a team like that? And I think the answer is that obviously we're not like that all the time, but when it happens, when more than two or three things kind of go wrong for us, we struggle as a team. And you know, that's something that, I mean, I know personally, if I have one or two things start going a bit wayward, I'm kind of okay. And then if there's three things that aren't going right at the same time, like in the house, with work, family, whatever it is, then it all becomes a bit of a nightmare. And I think that's what happens with this Arsenal team. When more than two things aren't working out for them, they really struggle to put it back. And I think we saw that yesterday. The things that went wrong were obviously the City result. That was the main one. That really had an impact. Martinelli going off, that had a secondary impact, and you've got two things there. And this is where Brighton come in with the third and maybe even fourth things, which is the way they approached the game. The game was very stop-start. So the ball was hardly in play. We couldn't really build any rhythm. Lots of niggling fouls, lots of stoppages, lots of slowing the game down, and that really frustrated us. So I mean, that's one example of things there where we just couldn't seem to get ourselves out of the mud. Another factor in how we actually broke ourselves is our lack of ruthlessness. You know, we had opportunities in that first half to score a couple of goals, and we didn't take them. And it is a pattern, I feel, throughout the year, is our lack of ruthlessness in kind of finishing teams off. We love to give teams a chance, and it really bit us yesterday. So going forward, that's something the managers actually recognised that, because they asked him, or he said earlier in the week, none of these players are actually playing at their peak, which I actually disagree with. I think probably Xhaka's playing as good as he can possibly play. I don't think he can play much better than he is, but maybe that's the only one. You know, I don't think right. I think he was right in that most of the others do have a higher ceiling that they can go to. But he also said how we can control games better, in the phases better, and he also said that, you know, we can be more ruthless, essentially. You see teams like City do it and Liverpool do it in the past, and that's the level that we need to get to. And then this is where we come into the lessons of what's happened to us, and are we prepared to look at the facts as a club and a fan base and accept the facts? And a lot of that actually comes down to the kind of standards that we want to hold ourselves to. If the goal is to win league titles, compete for league titles, compete and win for Champions Leagues, then there is a level of ruthlessness that we need to show on the pitch, but that we need to show off the pitch as well. And I don't know if we're going to show that off the pitch. I have my doubts, but hey, we'll see in the summer, I suppose. Part of the problem is that two of the players that we've bought to get us kind of into this position are they two players that can help get us over the line? And that would be the players from City, Zinchenko and Jesus. Now, Zinchenko is, he feels injury prone. I think against certain teams he can be a bit of a liability. I think he's against low block teams that aren't going to pose much of a threat going forward against us. I think he's very useful. But anyone with tricky wingers who are going to put it on us, we're going to have we're going to have problems with him. And I think we've seen those problems in the last few months. And obviously he's got injured and he might miss the rest of the season. So that's something to consider there. But we're also talking about offloading Tierney. So there's some decisions to be had. Jesus, he scored about 10 Premier League goals. Now, I know he was injured for a big part of the campaign, but he came back in the new year, and I don't think he's really set the team on fire. You know, he was coming back in and you were thinking, oh wow, he's going to come back in and fire us over the line. But he just doesn't look interested in playing as a number 9. That last man on the shoulder of the last defender. He's kind of dropping back more, turning up in the wing positions, and it's harsh because we have improved so much to second, but there's another level to go to, and we're not going to achieve that level that we want to with him playing the way he does. He misses too many chances, I feel. There's been a few games recently where we've had several one-on-ones, and you don't really have confidence that any of the players, Saka, Martinelli or Jesus, would really finish them, and they didn't finish any of them. But definitely that I feel that the case with Jesus. So there's decisions to be had. There. I think for a long while I was of the opinion that Smith Rowe should be given more chances, but when you start looking at it at the cold light of day, he's had a whole season, well not a whole season because he was out injured, but he still had plenty of time to make an impression in this team off the bench, and he came on for like a few minutes yesterday, but apart from that he's hardly been used, and I can only assume that in training he's just not cutting it for whatever reason. And this is that ruthlessness that, well, if we can get 30 million for him or whatever, do you pull the plug? For me, the answer would be, well, it depends on who we're going to bring in. And only the club know that. You know, I wouldn't just sell him and not replace him. Or if you're going to bring in someone who's subpar, then no, I wouldn't do it. But if you're saying, well, look, if we sell Smith Rowe, it allows us to bring in, say, James Maddison, then, you know, you're starting to have a conversation with yourself about doing something like that. So those are the tough decisions. I don't mind the club doing that if the money is reinvested in high quality purchases. If doing a deal like Smith Rowe enables us to get Rice and Caicedo over the line, then okay, then you know you could be persuaded that it's a good idea to do and put some kind of buyback option in there or whatever it is. So have the club got that desire to really push the boat out and do that? So the Cronkies have done stuff like this with the other sports franchises that they've owned. We'll have to wait and see if they do it with Arsenal. Another thing is the manager himself. You know, Arteta kind of apologised personally for the defeat and essentially said, look, the run-in, the collapse at the run-in is really my fault, which I thought was interesting because it didn't sound like he was doing it to take heat off the players. It sounded like he genuinely felt he'd messed up. And in a way, he's kind of right. He has messed it up because he stuck with Rob Holding for too long. And the reason he was stuck with Rob Holding was because he played Saliba in that European game, which he didn't need to do. focus should have just been completely on the league. But it is what it is. It's happened now, so there's nothing we can do about it. But interestingly, there was a table that came out which talked about the teams that rotated the most throughout the season, and I think Man City, I think the second team, the second most rotated team. Even though they used less players than us, those players were substituted more often. Arsenal were second to last, so we hardly ever swapped our team around. Hardly ever. Always just played the same players, and I feel like that's had a massive impact at the end of the season. Ben White looks fucked. Saka looks knackered. They've just been running to the ground, and they've not had much. I mean, especially Ben White. There's no one else at right back to play. So he's had to play all the games. So even if he had a dip in form, there's nothing we can do about it. And because there's no one behind him, because Tomiyasu keeps getting injured, he hasn't got any competition for his place either. And so, if you've got no competition for your place, I think you can't help maybe just drop a little bit in percentages. And that's all it takes is a little percentage drop, and you're on the back foot. So a lot of people are talking about, well, next year will be more experience, the mentality, yada yada yada, and I see where they're coming from. But what I feel they're forgetting is that we've exited the Carling Cup and the FA Cup fairly early on. We didn't really go massively deep into the Europa League. What did we get to? Was it the last 16 or the quarterfinals or something? And then we got dumped out of that. And next season, we've got Champions League. And we're not going to be able to really rotate too much for that. So, he's thinking he's going to have to, but Arteta comes out and says, hey, players need to understand they've got to play 70 games a season. And I don't think that's really feasible. So he's going to have to move things around a bit. And that's why it's so important to get these deals over the line, because not only do we need to raise the quality of the side, the actual starting 11, but we need to increase the depth of the squad. And I don't know if we can do that in a summer window, because it looks like it takes us a lot of time to get deals done, especially when there are multiple clubs going in for it. This Declan Rice deal, for example, if Arsenal do the deal, it's not going to be an early deal in the summer. That one's going to drag, unless someone like City just goes in there and goes, okay, look, here's 120 million. Bang, done. Or Chelsea do something crazy like that, which they might. If United get sold, I could see them going, okay, right, let's do it, and just going in there and just blowing everyone out. So, whereas with us, it'll kind of like drag, and we'll have multiple meetings, and then who knows what will happen. So, it'd be interesting to know if there's like a backup, what the backup idea is for Rice, because if they're putting everything into that, then oh boy, I don't think we're going to get Rice or Caicedo. So I just think there's going to be too many other teams with deeper pockets who are going to want it more than the Arsenal board will. So we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of managing the team, or managing the rotation of the team, I do feel there have been lots of opportunities across the season where we could have brought Saka off. We could have given Zinchenko a bit of a rest. Same with Saliba, potentially as well. Tomiyasu. The player's just a walking crock, essentially. I mean, nice guy and very good player, but he is a walking crock. He's just always injured. And I think, we should really cut our losses with him. Or is there a youth player that can come in who can actually play the games? So it's an interesting one. I have used the word bottle in reference to the team. I saw Le Grove put a blog out, and he didn't say bottle, but he said collapsed. he didn't reference me by name, but he referenced me in his latest blog, which I found quite nice, where he said that a Twitter post which I put out had crossed his path, talking about Arsenal collapsing being a thing now. That was my post to him and Johnny Cochran on the Arsenal Opinion podcast, and I do think it's a thing because it's happened 2 years in a row in very similar circumstances where we've had injuries, we've underperformed, and we've let an occasion get the better of us. We've broken ourselves, and that's that. So some people are taking the view, hey, look, no one would have thought we'd be where we are. We need to look at the positives, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the doomsdayers who are like, this is our only ever chance. We're never going to be in this position again. And for me, I suppose I don't know where I sit on it, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's why we tune in to watch the games, I suppose, because we don't know. No one actually knows what's going to happen really next season. Are Liverpool going to strengthen and be able to put a run together and add another 20 points onto what they got this season? It's a big jump to make. Are United going to get their act together? Will the club still be in kind of limbo land in terms of transfers? Are they going to overpay for everyone? Are they going to be signing really weird strikers in the Christmas window, in the January window? So I don't know what they're going to do. Chelsea, basically starting from ground zero with Pochettino. It's a lot of ground for them to make up. So, and then there's Spurs. If Spurs go and get someone like De Zerbi, I'd be concerned. I'd be keeping a very close eye on that, because he's clearly a quality manager. So, but it's just still painful. It's still painful the way it's ended, and I don't think it just stays with you. It does with me anyway. I mean, like I said, there are defeats that have stayed with me for literally decades. It's only been a day, so yeah, obviously it takes me a long time to recover from these things. So, but I feel like in terms of the result yesterday, you can talk about tactics and positioning, and there's so many factors that go into a football game, and I think yesterday it was a lot of off-field stuff that affected us on the pitch. And like I said, that can happen to me personally. If I have more than 2 things, let's just start forget 3 or 4 things, everything's going to shit. I'm not as good a person as I should be. I'm not as motivated or efficient or focused. And I think that's what happened to the team yesterday. It was just too many things that went wrong, and it all just became a bit too much. So hopefully as they do get older, because we are the second youngest team in the league, as we do get older, hopefully that will be something that we can, as a team, get our head around and understand and deal with a lot better. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now. If you've liked the video or got an opinion on it, please write something in the comments, or please like, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully I'll be a bit happier as we get closer to the next game. But Man City beat Chelsea. The league's all theirs, so it's essentially done now. But keeping an eye on the new season ahead. Thanks very much. Bye.